The top story on ABC News Breakfast, the fate of a group of asylum seekers to be sent to Malaysia will be decided today. The High Court will hand down its decision on the federal government's controversial refugee swap deal with Malaysia this afternoon.
Refugee lawyers argue Australia risks breaching its international obligations because Malaysia hasn't signed the UN Refugee Convention. But the government says the agreement ensures asylum seekers will be protected. Susan McDonald joins us now from Canberra. Susan, good morning. A lot riding on this judgment.
Certainly, Michael. These asylum seekers on Christmas Island have been in legal limbo for the past few weeks while they're waiting for the High Court to rule on this. That is going to happen today, so they'll decide whether or not they lift that injunction, which has been blocking their removal to Malaysia. Now, the government has been touting this as a deal that will break the people smugglers' business model. So there is a lot riding on this. And just in addition to the arguments you mentioned before, the High Court is also going to rule whether Chris Bowen is breaching his legal obligation as guardian to any asylum seekers under the age of 16. And that in particular, I think, is one to watch because the government has said that under this deal, there are no blanket exemptions. They haven't wanted to leave people smugglers with a loophole that they would exploit. So that's one to watch, whether or not the High Court rules that unaccompanied children can't be sent to Malaysia. But certainly the government has been saying it's confident that it's on strong legal grounds. So this is one to watch this afternoon.
Now, moving on to another issue, Susan, we have another trove of WikiLeaks cables released this morning, and the Attorney-General, Robert McClelland, is far from happy.
Yes, it's long-standing practice for the government not to comment on these WikiLeaks cables, but the Attorney-General, Robert McClelland, has said he's made an exception in this case because there's a cable that has been released which names 23 Australians as having alleged links to a Yemeni cleric who has links with Al-Qaeda. Now, Robert McClelland has condemned that cable and the fact that it has named those people and suggested that they be on a no-fly list or a watch list. So he's attacked WikiLeaks over that. But also he's said that this does risk national security. So quite strong language there. And he has moved to reassure people that Australian authorities are looking into very much on top of this issue, and if there are any Australians they have concerns about, that they are prevented from leaving the country.
And finally, we also see in these cables, Susan, some rather interesting character assessments of some senior Labor figures.
Yes, perhaps no surprises here. One cable talks about Bill Shorten, the Assistant Treasurer, harbouring leadership ambitions and ambitions to become Prime Minister one day. Another cable also talks about Stephen Conroy as loathing Julia Gillard. There's also another cable that does mention Bill Shorten again about his prime ministerial ambitions, but also interestingly, this is my favourite, that he is somewhat rumpled in appearance, and they've said that he has those ambitions despite being, quote, somewhat rumpled in appearance. I'm not sure whether they're suggesting that that is a barrier to becoming Prime Minister, or, you know, what he was looking like on the day, whether he hadn't brushed his hair or ironed his shirt, but yes, certainly some of these cables make for interesting reading.
He has to consult Paul Keating, I think, on suit tailoring before going any further in politics. Obviously, Susan McDonald in Canberra, thank you.